Hello and welcome, listeners, to this very special installment of Agri-Food Transitions podcast brought to you by Climate Bonds Initiative. Today, we will be tapping into the expertise of our special guests from different regions across the globe to learn more about how we can accelerate the transitions of agriculture and agri-food systems toward net zero. For this episode, we're going to talk about demystifying agri-food systems transition, challenges and opportunities. But before we get into the questions, it's important to highlight that in terms of the green, social, sustainable, and or the label bonds, as you can imagine, each region has a different stage of development. From one side, investment opportunities vary greatly, and the levels of disclosure and transparency are not the same. That's why today's podcast aims to show the comparative trends relative to the policy work carried out in each region and offer insights into the work that can be undertaken to improve the market's states and, of course, ensure a more rapid and transparent transition to green or transitional finance within agriculture. But first, let's introduce our guest. I'm thrilled to welcome Tassiano Custodio, who is the Regional Head of Sustainability at Rabobank Brazil, Rabobank South America. It is a pleasure to have you here, Tassiano.
Hi, Maria. Great to be here also.
And now we have today as well Sing Glenn, who is the Vice President at a Green and Sustainable Hub, Asia Pacific and Natixit Corporate and Investment Banking. Sing, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Maria. It's my pleasure indeed, and very excited to join today's session.
Thank you for being here. So let's start with the discussion. In 2022, we saw that more positive issues in the sector with projects focusing on a specific agricultural activities such as certification, mint-till, and among others. How do you see these impacts of this in your region?
Well, first to introduce, I believe it is important to say the Rabobank Group is a leading financer and knowledge partner of the global food and agriculture system. We bank clients here in Brazil for over 30 years, and we have a long-term relationship with the best producers in Brazil, and also Argentina, Chile, and Peru in South America. I'd say that the food system transition strategic positioning completes totally a support from our side on helping our clients on this transition to a more sustainable land occupation. So when I look at the impacts in Brazil for having sustainability issued finance instruments such as sustainability linked loans, green loans, or even impact funds such as Agri-3, I believe the impact on the territory is huge. Although we only finance around 1,300 clients, rural partners in Brazil, their territorial footprint, it is huge. For example, our clients represent around 20% of the total planted area of soybeans and corn in Brazil, around 20% of the beef, around 45% of the sugarcane, around 80% of the cotton. So when we have this contribution of emitting sustainability-linked facilities, either on the green or sustainability-linked financial tools, we are contributing decisively to provide more quality and safe products to the local market and also to the global food system. We're also supporting the sustainable development of the territories, the people, society, improving this access to food. We are also mitigating the worst effects of climate change through farming practices that will enhance the business resilience, protect and restore the environment, services provided by the farm ecosystem. So I totally believe that all the financial instruments that we are able to apply and support this strategy from our clients are having a huge territorial impact, positive impact, either on the environmental perspective, but also the social and the financial perspective.
Thanks to Tassiano. You gave a holistic picture of the how sustainable financing can support the food system. So in APAC, I would say, I mean, maybe there are more work that we need to do. And I agree that we see a lot of transactions now are linked with certification. But as you know, there are a lot of certifications for different commodities. We can not say which one is better. We know there are differences. So now we see the market and also even the borrowers or the issuers, they are exploring themselves as well. And so I see it's like the process of the engagement between the agriculture sector with the financial institutions. Agriculture sector compared to other sectors that we're familiar with, like energy or utility metal. I mean, it's much more complex, if I say, because for other sectors, we may concern about the climate change, but for agriculture sectors, in addition to climate change, as agriculture sector will be, it is one of the largest contributors of GHG emissions, but also heavily affected by climate change. But in addition to climate change, there are also other issues like biodiversity, etc. So yeah, so it's quite complicated. So I see in APAC, there are a lot of progress.
Well, it's very interesting to see how impacts might change depending on the region. Now, considering that, what are the trends for the specific projects in this sector?
Well, looking at the Latin America opportunity, I say that most of the KPIs linked with sustainable facilities and green facilities or either social facilities are much more connected with GHG emissions, so including carbon footprint of production, traceability of supply chain, and this would also include the highlighted deforestation-free criteria. So this would be including in reducing the carbon footprint of production for grains and oilseed, for example, or for animal protein. Also traceability, as I mentioned, but we're also seeing some KPIs related to water consumption, renewable energy, regarding the energy efficiency inside the farm itself. So this would become much more connected with a precision agriculture, where machinery can be renewed for more energy efficiency. Also, the usage of biofertilizers, which reduce the demand for nitrogen fertilizers, and this is so important for producers, so because they can reduce their costs and also enhance profitability, become more resilient and more competitive. ESG certifications are also very used as KPIs, as trend, I'd say. And to finish, I'd say maybe diversity, surrounding communities, all of this, women in leadership role. So all of those social KPIs are also targeted, and I see as a trend in Brazil and also in other Latin American countries.
I agree with you. It's very interesting to see how different trends such as deforestation-free criteria, traceability, energy efficiency is not only taking force and getting stronger in Latam, but as well worldwide. If you think about the EU as well, different regulations are taking place considering these main aspects. Sink, I'm very curious about how the trends are taking place in APAC.
Okay, in APAC, I will share the similar view as Tassiano mentioned. So there are for sustainability linked facility, I think GHG emission is still like shared widely by different financial institutions as one of the KPIs has to be addressed in KPI linked transactions. But also we see like different certifications has been used. And in addition, because we are also helping a lot of traders in APAC to structure their KPI linked facilities, we see that traceabilities has been focused for those commodity traders, but because that's one of the key impacts we think that they could make. Yeah, I would say for us, we also see like more KPI linked facilities in APAC than the dedicated user process. because for us, my observation is that maybe user process like agriculture related projects are more covered by financial institutions' green bond issuance. It's still not that common for like single agriculture companies to issue like a dedicated user process debt instrument in APAC. In China, the central bank PBOC is developing the transition finance framework or taxonomy, and covering sectors including agriculture. So for that one, I think they will cover both project level or at the entity levels. So I think after PBOC have more clear guidelines, we can see more like dedicated user process agriculture transactions from China. So that's my hope as well.
And in terms of the taxonomy, when is going to be delivered that guidelines?
Hopefully within this year, but if you ask me if it's next quarter or Q3 or Q4, I'm not sure.
Great to hear. Thank you, Seng. Now, I'm curious about what institutional guidelines are being used. If we think about verifiers, criteria, and many others, how would you use this criteria for this? And can you see the impacts of it inside the region?
Regarding Latin America, actually, Rabobank has published in 2023 this year its first global standard on sustainable lending, and it is using some taxonomy, some market guidelines coming from sustainability-linked loan principles, the bond principles, the social bond principles. So using all the LMA and other entities, market guidelines to structure either the sustainability linked or the sustainable facilities. But basically, we have our own standard for this, the global landing, and we are enhancing the applicability and leveraging the potential that we have to generate impactful actions in the territory. So it's all brand new, so it's all public also. We can download it from Rabobank's website. And what we tried to connect, since we are a very niche bank focused on food and agriculture, it is bringing this standard and bringing some examples and some possibilities that can be feasible and applicable to the reality of a hudo producer. Because this could be completely different when we compare to corporate clients, where corporate clients are already aligned with global initiatives and are aligned sometimes with the 2050 sustainability agenda. But when we come into the field and come to a hudo producer that is actually connected with his own production, most of the time he's not so connected with the global initiatives and the market trend. So what the idea that we had, it is how can we apply and how can we use this principle, these guides, so it could be much more connected with the reality on the field. And I believe we are fulfilling this opportunity and bringing to our clients the opportunity to support their strategy for becoming a more resilient and more sustainable producer. And this represents a more sustainable land occupation, which means being much more profitable and being able to invest in social impacts and also environmental responsibility.
Thank you, Tassiano. I'm very curious about understanding the challenges about connecting the region with the global initiatives. You were mentioning this before, and I'm very curious about how Latin America is thriving through this challenge. How do you manage to actually connect the region with those global initiatives?
Maria, I'd say that is basically kind of understanding the regional context and the context that comes from the producers, which sometimes it is prioritizing differently the KPIs. For example, we understand that climate related topics and KPIs are a global trend, are a global preoccupation, and we all have to understand that this will affect everyone's production. But we also have to recognize, for example, in South America and in Latin America, that the social KPIs can also drive a huge impact on the field, because we are basically developing economies. So when I say reprioritizing, reorganizing the sustainable finance instruments to reorganize what are the KPIs that can be that can have a much higher impact on the ground. This is what we are doing. This is how we try to connect with the regional context. For example, when we have water scarcity in Chile, for example, that is, of course, it is totally linked to climate related issues. But specifically to Chile, this is something that can be much more of effect if we compare this to other kinds of precision agriculture in Brazil, for example. So basically, it is looking for each and every reality and understanding what are the KPIs that make more sense to these and to that producer.
Thank you so much, Luciano, for that closer approach to Latin America. Now, I'm very curious about what is happening in APAC as well, not only in terms of institutional guidelines, but as well what Luciano was mentioning before in terms of reprioritizing.
Yeah, I think the contexts are quite important. Not only on the region, but also to the to different time frame. Because for agriculture players, we will meet like a very very practical issue. Is, for example, the weather. I remember one case that we tried to discuss about the fertilizer usage with the client. I mean, trying to have some target to reduce the fertilizer, but basically it's quite difficult because the fertilizer usage can be linked with the weather, like how much rain this region will have for this year or for the forecast of the future. So it's quite difficult. So that's the things I want to say. So in addition to KPI, how we can calibrate the target setting for the clients, or more generic wise is about the benchmarking of like the performance or KPIs for the companies or for the sector or for the region.
Yeah, I think since we are financing, we have two types of clients basically. We have the corporate clients where, for example, already trying to achieve carbon neutrality or net zero approach or traceability, and we also have the rural producer. So those are totally two different worlds. When I talk to corporate clients, where most of the label that we're using are sustainability linked loans or bonds, for those clients, they are much more mature on approach. And what we do is basically align with them on the KPIs that they already are aiming to achieve. But when we talk about rural producers, those are completely different scenario. And what we try to positively influence is how can we support them on their strategy to become much more cost effective, to reduce their impacts on the territory, the negative impacts on the territory, looking at the environmental perspective, but also enhancing the social, the positive social impacts on the territory. So those are totally different, and we try to actually fit to each reality.
Now you were providing how the approach will change depending of the type of client. You were mentioning, Tiziano, if it is a corporate or if maybe is an actor that is inside the supply chain in agri. So it's quite interesting to see how the approach might change and how the benchmarking as well will be different. But I really would like to get deeper into the levels. And I know that this will change depending of the region, depending of the market. So globally, we see that green labels by far are the most common label. And what I'm trying to understand is, how is that context in your region? Is this the most common label? Is it another one? And which ones are the benefits it brings to the sector?
In the case of Latin America, I'd say that probably the share of green labels are a bit higher than sustainability linked facilities. But there's a huge trend on using sustainability link as well. So green loans are still, especially green loans are still maybe the most part of the portfolio issuance that we have under a sustainability perspective. But sustainability linked are gaining more traction in Brazil, especially. And why would I say that is on the corporate level is that sustainability linked loans can be a support on the strategy for each company. So if I do have a climate related strategy or a social related strategy, I can easily link with a sustainability facility for this specific case, where I can align the KPI from the industry or the corporation itself with the sustainability with a sustainable facility. When we go to the whole world perspective, it also makes a lot of sense because we can support producers on achieving a lower carbon footprint, for example, by investing in agriculture, in precision agriculture, or by investing in regenerative practices, or even by investing, for example, in the voluntary carbon market process. So we have projects in Brazil related to the carbon market, conservation projects under the REDD+ methodology, or restoration and reforestation projects under the ARR methodology, and those are all applicable as sustainability linked loans. So basically, yes, green facilities are still the largest amount of issuance that we have in Latin America, but sustainability link are on their way to get the same position, I'd say.
In APAC, so I mean the relatively larger market in China, dedicated user process green loan for agriculture players, mainly taken care by the domestic banks in China. So for us, we have more influence or in the offshore market, I would say. So in offshore market, we see more actually sustainability linked loan than green loans. So that's what we see. But we see the challenges to identify KPIs for the corporates, as mentioned, the benchmarking. This can be due to the transparency, because, for example, the sustainability disclosures mandatory for listed companies in Singapore and in Hong Kong. But if you look at the wider or the broader scope of the agriculture players, a lot of them are private company, and a lot of them have not done like a comprehensive ESG disclosure yet. That's what we see. So, but we started to engage with them to understand their status, and also to let them understand as a financier our expectation for how sustainable agriculture business could be. So we hope this kind of engagement will help them to enhance their sustainability performance, and hence they could have opportunities to apply sustainable financing as well.
So far, we have been talking about how those green levels are being the most common level around the globe, even if it is not the unique one, let's say. But now I would like to concentrate about the SLV. We saw that the latest decline in the sector was in 2021, 2022, and it was caused probably by rising interest rates and the market volatility. So I'm very interested on understanding if this is likely to bounce back or not.
I hope that there will be more and more companies to adopt the SLB. But as you know, for SLB, there is like one key question, or the first question need to be answered is about the science-based or the ambition of the target. So, you know, in APAC, I would say most of the countries or regions, their national decarbonization target is not like 2050. So I think that's like the international investors' expectation to see like a net zero target by 2050. So I see they, because of the gap, so maybe a lot of companies, they are still in progress to enhance their carbon reduction target. So but of course there are SLBs in APAC, but you mean if you ask like how quickly they could bounce back, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it would be difficult to predict it. Now, I would like to get now into another important matter, and this is connected with something that Tiziano was mentioning at the beginning. You were talking about deforestation free. We were talking about all these different aspects that should be considered in terms of market opportunities. So I'm wondering, considering that we're not seeing large amounts of issues using terms of deforestation and conversion free, do you think that this likely to change, or this is a terminology that is not going to be applicable to the bond universe?
Maria, I believe it is applicable. What we have to understand, in my perspective, is that European Union guidelines and the Green Deal, especially related with the deforestation and conversion-free commodities, they are not still in place. We are looking on a time window of 18, maybe 24 months, so 1.5, 2 years from now, to start having the reality impact on their export-driven producers and companies to export those commodities to European Union. And probably this time frame that will come together with much more usage of the terminology into the bond universe. So, and this is one perspective that I believe that, for example, the market, European market, and the regulation, it will pull the opportunities from deforestation and conversion-free terminology into the bond universe. So this will be pulled by the market, but also connecting with the regional contacts and on the ground. We have to keep in mind that Latin American are composed by developing economies, and sometimes we cannot directly link the deforestation occurrences with agricultural production. It is much more linked with poverty. It is much more linked with land speculation that will, in a time frame, a long time frame, it will become a productive area. Meaning that we have to understand that still Brazil, for example, 850 million hectares of territory, a huge continental territory where poverty prevails in the rural universe. So people that hold, for example, a large amount of native vegetation of forest and can be starving. So we have to understand that there are opportunities for social development that comes first than the agri-commodity business. So answering directly, I believe that European regulation will pull the opportunities, will pull this into the market, but still there are a lot of enhancements to be done in the field of the social development.
Thank you, Tiziano. So you will say that this is not just a matter of how deforestation and conversion-free terminology will be applicable. It's more about how it will be interconnected with other terminology such as social development, such as poverty. This is what you're trying to say?
Great, Maria, exactly. It is connecting the deforestation free with the other KPIs, with other terminology that can be actually to generate a real impact in the territory for those people that are living there. So yeah, you got it completely right.
Great. As well, this is something that I agree with you, because it will depend about the region. If we think about poverty, social development, the understanding, the sensibility with both aspects is not the same if you think about developing countries, or if you take into consideration other regions. But yeah, this is a aspect that we can continue talking about for hours and hours and hours. And I think that this is becoming one of the main focuses in terms of how the market behaves, how to create different levels, how these represent opportunities for investors. And I will say that to improve funding in the sector and maybe try to make it more open for this kind of terminology, we need government policy, we need the public sector. And according to this, I would like to know if you agree with this statement, and do you think that it's more likely to be improved, those terms of traceability and certification of supply chain, or do you see that in your regions this is something that is not going to be happening soon?
Maria, completely agree. I believe that traceability and supply chain certifications, those will be probably the most likely used guidelines for KPIs for different types of financing instruments, because this on a second stage will drive the deforestation and conversion free visibility that we are aiming to. So by the means of the traceability and certification, we can get to deforestation and conversion free products. So yeah, I believe that probably we will see much more on the not only on the financial side perspective for financial institutions to issue more sustainability linked facilities with using traceability as a KPI, but also from the government itself to have broader and more impactful programs regarding supply chain certification and traceability.
Singh, do you agree with Tiziano?
Yes, yes. And one more thing I also want to address is about like the civil society's influence, because obviously the consumers, I would say, is also playing very important role here. So it's like to educate the consumers and to leverage on their powers to influence the whole system is also critical, especially in APAC, with like a growing population here. So yeah, that's the point I see.
Thank you, Singh. Now, I have a very difficult question for both of you. I would like to know which ones are the predictions for the volume projects for the coming years for the finance sector in your region. I know that is not an easy question, but I'm sure that the audience and everyone who is listening to us are very keen to understand which ones are your predictions.
Well, we are from my side, Maria. I'm not. I cannot predict. I cannot say because I'm not the main economist from Rabobank. But I'll say my perspective as the head of sustainability. I totally say that I'm very optimistic with the opportunities that are coming from this year and the years to come, especially when linked with we just talked about the traceability, supply chain certification, and everything that goes on about the deforestation, and also the other criteria used by the European Green Deal. So I believe that the Green Deal and how the European Union is guiding sustainability in the financial market, pulling this opportunities, and by pulling it to the market, we'll see traders, commodity traders, trying to achieve those targets and using sustainability linked bonds as an instrument for that. So I'm very optimistic. I cannot say about projections and number or volume about it, but I'm very optimistic about it in the Latin American region.
For you know, APAC is huge, so but we see like so far in terms of the volume of the sustainable financing instrument, and it's growing for sure. And the other positive progress is about what we call penetration rate. So in terms of the conventional financing facilities, there are more and more green and sustainability linked facilities. So I would say that should be the case for agriculture sector as well.
Thank you, Sim. Thank you so much to both of you. It has been very interesting conversation. I think that everyone who is listening to us have been able to understand more about each region, about the behavior of the market, about the different labels, and in terms of funding and investment, how those opportunities are showing for the sector. So thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and your knowledge with us. It was great to hear the thoughts of Tiziano and Singh as we demystify agri-food systems transition, and it was amazing to have a closer understanding of the uniqueness and the particularity of each region. For those who are listening to us, if you do have questions or comments, we will be launching a Q&A session shortly after this podcast. Head over to Climate Bonds on Twitter or head over to our LinkedIn account to see other updates from our work. Please remember that this episode, as well as previous podcasts, are going to be available at our website, climatebondsinitiative.net, or just search for Climate Bonds Initiative on Spotify platform. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, like, and share. Thank you so much for listening, and take care.